Hey, Rachel.
Hey, Brian.
So how was your week?
It's all relative. I did not have the greatest week, but at least I'm not the captain of that container ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal 2 days ago.
That's the definition of a bad week.
There's so many things about it that I don't understand. It's choked off world trade. It's still there. They can't get it out.
We don't know how long it's going to be there. They'll probably be there 3 weeks from now. We'll still be talking about it. Okay, I have a little more I want to talk to, but we'll do it after the intro. This is Nope,
the podcast where we shut it down.
We're just a couple of New York Jews talking about the news, beating back the blues. We made a podcast and here's why. Had to laugh so we don't cry. Come and join us for the ride. Welcome to Nope.
Okay, so can you just tell the listeners what actually happened, because it's the kind of story that's happening in both very quickly and also in slow motion because
so I feel ill-equipped to handle this because one of these mental blocks that I have is nautical information.
I once worked for a container ship company. Did you know?
Oh, so that's what this is. So you're the one who should be talking about what happened.
Well, I know what happened.
Oh yeah, you did.
Ship.
It was like a tech company that dealt with
Yes, exactly. But I don't know what actually happens within the containers. I just know how they get from one place to another, and I also know that a lot of it involves the Suez Canal. Which, to my question is, how is it 2021 and there's still only one way to get from the Indian Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean to the rest of the world? And how is there only one Panama Canal and we built it 120 years ago? Isn't it time for some more canals?
Need some progress canals or just sort of low flying vehicles.
I mean, we're still what is this, the 1820s, and we're stressing over the Erie Canal.
We are garbage. We have no progress. This is terrible. But what I don't understand. Okay, so the ship was headed to the Netherlands from China, and it was filled with, the containers were all filled with stuff.
Was it too filled? Was that the problem? Was it overly overladen with lading?
I think that became the problem. It wasn't initially the problem. The problem was that there was a sandstorm in Egypt and the
water.
Winds. This is very incomprehensible to me, but the winds shifted this ship off course and it ran aground. How do you run aground?
Right. Isn't a canal there's walls, right?
Right. It's not like it gets shallow.
Well, I saw this picture of this row of tugboats trying to push it. And I'm like, I can tell you right now, honey, that ain't going to work.
No, you don't need to be a engineer.
Or a fluid dynamic engineer.
But there's so many confusing elements, but I just don't know how you run aground when you're a container ship. It's no way
to run a canal. That's no way to run a canal.
And then there was a
call
map.
Call us. We will run the canal for you.
But did you see the map? There was this confusing path that the container ship took, and it was
How many paths are there? It's a fucking canal. It's one way in and one way out, right?
It had to turn around. It was maneuvering. It's not a easily maneuverable vehicle, but in Vice, they had a map of all of the paths it took, and it traced an image of a dick pic, basically. Did you see that?
No, I did not see. Of the captain?
No, the map of the dots of where the boat
it looks
went
it looks like a dick pic?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a Rorschach test. You saw what you wanted to see, I guess. Okay.
No,
we'll keep you posted. I'm sure we'll be talking about this next week.
Yes.
Rachel, what was going on in your life this week?
So last week I talked about how I said on Twitter that cancel culture was not a thing, and I got attacked by all these right-wing lunatics who were calling me a handmaiden to socialism and worse. And this week I've enraged the other side, and I've been called a Karen and portrayed as a member of the Ku Klux Klan. So I don't know. I mean, I guess I
Wait,
contain
what-
multitudes. We all contain multitudes, but this is
right. Right. We are all more than just one thing. And yeah, it's like, was this a reaction to the same tweet or was this a new tweet that you managed to
It was a
throw
new
at?
tweet. Yes, it was a new tweet. So what happened was that I tweeted an article in the Atlantic by Caitlin Flanagan, and it was her take on the Meghan Markle interview with Oprah.
But that was the
And-
first. That was the first one. That was the one that got you the right-wing trolls.
No, this got me the left-wing trolls.
Oh, okay. Continue, please.
So
I'm having trouble
the one
following.
that got me the right-wing trolls was when I said on Twitter that cancel culture was not a thing.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Continue. Yes.
So I just posted this article by Caitlin Flanagan, which I liked. It was about the Meghan Markle interview. And it was funny. She took shots at everybody. Like no one was spared. The Duke, the Duchess, the monarchy, the royal family. She made fun of Meghan's statement that she never Googled Prince Harry and talked about the rescue chickens and said that Harry looked like a I laughed. I thought it was funny. So I tweet that. This is a classic article, and suddenly my mentions are lit up by people calling me a typical entitled so-called feminist who's really a racist. There was this professor from the University of Indiana who was like, typical Karen, you must be proud of yourself. And then this sort of right-wing feminist, I forget her, Susanna Hoff Summers, is that her name?
Susanna Hoffs from the Bangles.
No, maybe I'm confusing. Or Christina Hoff Summers.
Right. Walk like an Egyptian. Yes.
This is more walk like a conservative. She like jumps in to defend me. I don't want her defense. And she's like, calls this professor at the University of Indiana a mansplaining scold. And then like I get pictured, there's like a photograph of 3 Klansmen wearing hoods. And someone
God.
says, this is Caitlin Flanagan, Christina Hoff Summers, and Rachel Dodds. And I'm like, one of these people is not like the others. Like,
And do you know those people?
no, I've never met them. I don't know them. I liked an article, right? So I tried to like engage with some of these people, and I found it
No,
helpful
never
in some.
engaged.
No, it was. Some of them were reasonable, and we had like a good dialogue. And in other cases, they just wanted to like dismiss me as like an awful Karen. And then the next day, I saw we got a 1-star rating on our podcast.
Don't take it out on
from-
me, on us.
I know. Like, what did you have to do with this? You didn't do
I'm
anything.
collateral damage. I was
You
just
are.
shopping in the supermarket. So that's too soon. Sorry.
Yeah. So this person gives us a 1-star review, and the review says that I called the person's brother a racial slur that I would never say. So I was like, what recourse do I have? I called my friend who works at Apple. He was like, I have no idea. Like, this is not my area. So I reached out to Apple to try to get the review removed. But you know, it's ridiculous. It's not like I gave a 5-star review on Goodreads to Mein Kampf. I liked an article that was in the Atlantic.
Okay. I'm sorry about your week. That sounds far worse than what happened to me.
It was horrible. It was horrible. What happened to you?
Oh, well, nothing happened. This is something that happened to me 15 years ago, but I have a long lead into it. So,
Okay, do tell.
So, Rachel, if I were to ask you if you had one question about Meatloaf, the musical artist, what would the one question about Meatloaf be?
It's so obvious. It's what is the one thing that he won't do for love?
I would do anything for love, but I won't do that. His famous song from 1993 was #1 in 28 countries, and everyone was asking then and to this day, what is that?
What is it? What could
And
it be?
The only clue we have is that we all kind of assumed it was, up the butt, and right? I mean, come on.
I guess,
Obviously.
but like,
Wait, but the only thing he's ever said is that it's not up the butt. Like, it's something else, which is only even more intriguing. It takes it up a notch. So now he's going to make us work to find out the answer to this question, right? His music career is dead. So go where the money is.
just say it. Just tell us what it. He
Right.
wrote this.
So there's a new reality show in development called I Do Anything for Love, but I Won't Do That, in which, I quote the pitch, Couples compete in a variety of comedic physical games designed to reveal how they can work together and how much they really trust and believe each other, all to a soundtrack of classic hits. And okay, so I guess we're gonna have to work. By the way, that song "I Could Do Anything for Love" was written by like classic hitmaker Jim Steinman. Of course, I know this, right? Who wrote "Total Eclipse of the Heart," and if you listen to them side by side, they're kind of the same song, actually. And he also wrote "My Heart Will Go On" by Celine Dion. And basically any of those bombastic songs from the 80s and 90s, he wrote all those songs. Anyway, so we have to watch this show to figure this out. And
I don't care what these contestants won't do for love. I only care what Meatloaf won't do.
Right. But I said, this is a show we do not need. I do not want to know this badly. I don't know what, like, no one asked for this much Meatloaf content in 2021.
This isn't a show. This is like a tweet or a text. Text us, Meatloaf, and save yourself the trouble.
But then he wouldn't get a Netflix contract out of it.
Yeah, I guess so.
So here's my personal story part of it. So I have a semi-personal Meatloaf encounter. Of course.
You just the Queen, Meatloaf,
Right,
Eric Trump.
Right. There's no end to my trove of. I didn't even give you my Madonna story ever when I ran into her. Literally, I'll save that for another day. But yeah, so I went to Bill Clinton's inauguration in 1996. And there's a whole long story that's for another day, that I went to the swearing-in ceremony in the Capitol steps, and I actually dropped and lost my inaugural ball tickets. And some couple, some classic Brian, right? And some couple from the Midwest found it and looked me up in the phone book, like the white pages, and called multiple hecks and found me. And then I went and retrieved it from them from like a Holiday Inn, and I got my inauguration ball tickets. And I took Stacy Schultz, who's a listener and one of my dearest friends, and we went and we walked in to the ball. And they were playing, like the DJ was playing "I Would Do Anything for Love, But I Won't Do That." a perfect song for an inaugural ball. Well, when you think it's Bill Clinton, actually, maybe it is.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe it is. And
subliminal, yeah.
Right. I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe the DJ is playing Meatloaf." And Stacy goes, "No, that is Meatloaf." And it turned out that Meatloaf was playing live. He was the star.
He was the DJ?
No, he was playing live. He was the star.
Oh, he was singing.
He was the star attraction. At the inaugural ball. So there you go. I didn't meet him. Al Gore showed up and danced with Tipper. There were a lot of inaugural, like each state or group of states has an inaugural ball. There's no longer just one, right? So this was the DC, etc. one. So Al Gore and Tipper made an appearance. They danced, not to "I Would Do Anything for Love," especially given the prudishness of Tipper Gore.
Right.
I bet she didn't hear that song. So anyway, that's my Meatloaf story.
What a strange story. I wish that you had asked him. We could have precluded this whole business.
No, he was. You couldn't get to him. There were too many fans.
He was busy. Okay.
Around. He was busy doing that. But not for love. Okay, let's move on to the notes.
Okay.
There have been some notes embedded in all this front matter. So, okay, Rachel, go ahead. What do you got?
Okay. So who among us can ever forget Sidney Powell, the Trump lawyer who promised to release the Kraken in the wake of the 2020 election? She was going to prove that the Dominion voting machine company was changing votes, and it was all a scam started by Hugo Chavez, who is dead. But then, like, she kind of slipped away after the election, and then after Twitter banned her. But she's resurfaced because she was sued for defamation by Dominion voting machines, seeking $1.3 billion in damages.
Which I'm sure she has.
Right. So
stashed away in her mattress.
Yeah, I'm sure. But, they always ask for more than they can get.
A little more.
She has 1.2 billion. So this week she unveiled her legal strategy to fight these charges. And it was very interesting, I think. So you might think that someone like Sidney Powell is a true believer. She would stand in her truth. She would use this opportunity
double down,
release the Kraken, dazzle us with this evidence of voter fraud that that you have gathered in this extra time that you've had since this.
Oh, yeah, they were always asking for one more day. And now she's had like 3 months and I'm still waiting.
Bring it on, right? We're ready. But no, her legal team's defense is that no reasonable person would ever believe one word she says. So they filed a motion to dismiss the lawsuit, saying, given the highly charged and political context of the statements, it is clear that Powell was describing the facts on which she based the lawsuits she filed in support of President Trump. Indeed, plaintiffs themselves characterized the statements at issue as wild accusations and outlandish claims.
Wait. So she's basically pleading temporary insanity, like she was caught up in the frenzy and she couldn't help what she said.
I don't think it's temporary, and I think it's permanent insanity.
It's virtual insanity. Jamiroquai.
Yes. Virtual and actual. So she's basically saying that these claims were made up out of whole cloth for frivolous lawsuits that she filed.
Now that she's facing financial ruin, of course she's going to grasp at whatever straws she can conjure up.
Fine, but if that's the only straw she has, and if that's the case, then she should forfeit her license to practice law immediately before even entering the courtroom to defend herself.
Wait, so so go ahead. Yeah.
No. Go ahead.
No, is she saying that she was like putting the whole thing in quotes? Like, this is crazy, but I'm going to, like Trump does, but I'm going to repeat what the crazy people say. And that's why it sounds so crazy. Is that what she's saying?
That's not what I gather. I think that they're just saying she was representing Trump. He's crazy and had these wild beliefs. And she was just saying what her client wanted her to say. And these claims will be discovered through the courts. But that's not what the courts are meant to do.
We played the clips, right?
The courts, you're not supposed to just like go out and make wild claims and file lawsuits and tie up the courts in verifying your claims. Like this is a frivolous
They're not private
lawsuit.
Investigators. That's not their job.
No, and it's notable that her team is basically agreeing with Dominion and everybody else who said that the election was fair. Right?
Now that she has personal, stake in the game, of course she'll say the truth because that's what defense. The truth is going to set her free. Except it won't. She'll hopefully be in jail.
Well, there is precedent for this. Tucker Carlson used defense.
Wait. I thought Tucker Carlson is not an authority on legal, unlike
No,
precedent.
I know, but when he was sued by Karen McDougal, the Playboy model, for defamation, his lawyers basically said he's an entertainer. Nobody should believe he's always telling the truth on his show, and the courts ruled in his favor. But the problem is that, Sidney Powell is not an entertainer. She's a lawyer. So I just don't think it carries the same weight. And the bigger problem is that these claims say that no reasonable person should believe anything Sidney Powell says. But the thing is that because of the things that Sidney Powell said, people believe them. Polls show that as many as 3/4 of Republicans believe there was widespread fraud in the 2020 election. And a January Washington Post ABC News poll showed that more than 6 in 10 Republicans believed that there was a solid evidence for Trump's claims of rampant fraud. So these conspiracies do have consequences. And I know that this lawsuit is serious and has implications for whether political conspiracy theories are protected speech or not. And I feel like, no, these political conspiracy theories should not be protected. And I hope she fucking loses and is on the hook for $1.3 billion and loses her law license. And she should also really be in jail, right? And I also think part of her sentence should be she should have to get up and make a public statement that the election was free and fair and that she is full of shit.
Yeah, in fact, I would forfeit the other things for her to say that.
Yes.
I just want her to say that. That's it.
Yeah,
and I want everyone else to say that. Yeah. Okay. Very
so
good.
nope to the Kraken.
Okay, I have a related. I mean, we've gone a few weeks without mentioning the election or the insurrection or any of the.
It'll keep bubbling back.
Yeah, it'll be back. So unfortunately, the echoes are back in this item. So if you remember, after Trump was kicked off Twitter, he said like, "Oh, I wouldn't want to be on any of these platforms anyway. Like, I don't even want to be on social media." But for someone who said that, he sure is trying hard to get back on social media. So as early as January. If you remember, Brad Parscale, who we've covered extensively, tried to buy Parler, which was the right-wing nut job like version of Twitter, and he wasn't able to do that. And then Parler got like banned from everything also. Then there's this other one called Gab, G-A-B.
Oh, that's like the real garbage of the garbage.
Right,
it's like
right. In fact, GAB stands for garbage.
Yes.
Right. So apparently they deployed Jared Kushner to go make an offer to them to for Trump to go on to Gab in exchange for equity in Gab. And it was like, I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. But then the founder, Andrew Torba, promptly refused it. And so, so it's an offer you can refuse. He said, no. The second it was brought up, I said, no, I'm not entertaining that. And they offered to buy it. And he said, Gab's not for sale. There's no amount that would get me to sell. Zero.
No amount?
No
He'll
amount.
do anything for love, but he won't
do that. I would do anything for love, but I won't sell Gab. Okay. Then this week, Jason Miller was on Fox News to say that Trump is going to launch his own social media network in the next 2 to 3 months, which is going to be, quote, the hottest ticket in social media.
Okay, this is BS if I've ever heard it. This man doesn't know how to start anything. All he knows is how to destroy
run things
shit.
into the ground, right? And that it was going to be run by one and only Brad Parscale,
who we last saw him naked on the curb with his pants
being
unbuttoned.
arrested for attacking his wife, right?
Yes, with like several weapons being carried out of his home.
Yes, and
then he went to a mental institution, right?
Yes, but he's back now. We can't hold it. He's better. I'm sure he's 100% better. He's on his meds. I'm sure he's totally fine. But then, just hours before this podcast is recording now, I got breaking news from Axios, who said that Dan Scavino, who's like the digital communications guy for Trump, had been approaching, quote, no-name app vendors in an effort to buy one of them to turn it into like Trump Twitter. And he had focused his efforts in on one called Free Space, which sounds promising. It sounds like a libertarian, like almost like a Parler, right? So you buy that, Okay. But upon further investigation, it's a little surprising what Free Space actually is. It bills itself as being, quote, backed by science to positively reinforce good habits and make the world a better place. Yeah, so a perfect match for the Trump agenda. Yes. Right? What could possibly go wrong? Reinforce good habits, great habits, the best habits. And then you dig deeper, corporate, and it turns out it's affiliated with something called Skylab Apps. What is Skylab Apps? It is a community for coaches, trainers, and, quote, social fusion for free thinkers, athletes, and entrepreneurs.
Okay.
It's the obvious constituency
for Trump's speech.
Free thinkers and athletes. And on the ads on Free Space and on the Skylab apps are for Skylab's other businesses, which include ads for frozen yogurt that they own, IV therapy, and diesel exhaust fluid.
These are all businesses that this
under the same corporate umbrella as Free Space.
Wow. I mean, I feel like when they say it's good to diversify your holdings, they did not mean that.
Diversified and vertically integrated, and it's like a one company accelerator. Like I should look at companies that come out of there. I mean, diesel exhaust fluid. What even is that? Is it fluid that's made out of diesel exhaust, or is it fluid that you put into a diesel engine to do something with the exhaust?
Or is it like the organic, like biofuel?
But why would it have exhaust in it then? And what does frozen yogurt and IV therapy have to do? Do they then make frozen yogurt with the
Out of the exhaust.
exhaust? We have the best frozen yogurt, but you just need to know one thing about it. It's made from diesel exhaust. And if you want to skip the frozen yogurt, you could just get an IV and we'll pump it directly into your veins. What could possibly go wrong? It's a perfect business plan. Come to me. I'll fund you.
Okay.
But there's still a few problems. They have nowhere to host it because Amazon Web Services isn't hosting any of these things. There's no app store to download it on after Trump takes it over because he's banned from that as well. This is just dumb. And then on top of all of this, Bernie Sanders came out today and said that he's, whatever, quote, troubled by the permanent ban of Trump from Twitter. He thinks he should be let back at some point.
I'm troubled that he's even talking about that. There's bigger things.
What's going to happen? Trump's
like,
going to turn over a new leaf. He's going to grow into the ex-presidency the way he grew into the presidency.
Who cares? Like he's nobody, and this is nothing, and we need to move on. You know?
Okay, then no, shut it down.
No, Bernie. God,
Okay.
that's very disappointing.
Free space. If you have a podcast distribution platform, please include us on it.
Think about us.
5 stars. Rate us 5 stars only. We'll endorse
fans.
your
We're fans
diesel
of your
exhaust
work.
fuel. Okay, shut it down. No, Rachel, go ahead.
No. So I've been dying to talk about this. So it's a story that started out as a relatively straightforward tale of food contamination, but it's turned into something much bigger. So
We used to do a lot of these. Remember in the early days when there was like Chipotle contamination? That's when the bar
romaine.
The bar was lower for Nopes. Like
Yeah.
the very fact that there was like contaminated romaine was sufficient for us to do a segment. Now that's like
We
table
covered the
stakes.
contaminated romaine so many times. Every time there was an outbreak, we were on it.
So you're going to take it up a notch now.
Yes. So this is very unusual. So there's a guy named Jensen Karp. He's a 41-year-old writer and comedian in Los Angeles, and he used to rap under the name Hot Carl. And Jensen Karp loves Cinnamon Toast Crunch. It's his favorite cereal. He
This
even
This is quite a setup. I know a lot about Carl already. Is he single?
Yeah. No, he's married. He's married to a woman named Danielle Fishel Karp, who played Topanga on the 1990s sitcom Boy Meets World.
Oh, wow. Oh, she's famous.
Yeah,
Hey, okay.
exactly. Okay, so he loves Cinnamon Toast Crunch so much that he even owns a pair of special edition Kyrie Irving Cinnamon Toast Crunch Nikes. Okay, so like he's hardcore. And so it will come as no surprise to anybody that he buys his Cinnamon Toast Crunch in bulk. He got his at Costco, goes home, opens the bag, eats a bowl, pours himself a second bowl, only to find a couple of cinnamon encrusted shrimp tails mixed in with the cereal. Brian, had you heard about this at all? Or?
No.
Okay.
No. I've been working a lot the last week.
Okay.
I missed this.
Okay,
story.
well, I'm glad because it's very interesting. There's a lot of ins and outs. So he's alarmed by this, and he decides to send a photo to his wife to make sure he's not losing his mind. So he sends it to his wife, Danielle Fishel Karp. So we've got a guy named Karp. His wife is named Fishel, and they're dealing with
aquatic theme here. Yes.
Yes,
It's
they're
the
dealing
life
with a
of
shrimp
the life
situation.
aquatic. Yes.
Yes. So just to set the tone. And so Danielle Fishel Karp tells her husband he's not going crazy. These are indeed shrimp tails in your cinnamon toast crunch.
It's like identifying the body. He needed like a second person
He was just like
to identify that they were in
like,
fact
what?
shrimp tails and
He
not
was like-
cinnamon toast crunches. Are
He
they
was just
easily
kind of like,
confused?
he was so startled. He was like, what should I do? And so she said, report it to General Mills, and which is the right thing to do. So he fills out one of those online forms on the website, and they're like, oh gosh, we're so sorry. We'll refund the box, whatever. And while this is going on, he decides to also post a photo on Twitter of the shrimp tails next to his Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And that's when things got weird, because it was suddenly a branding problem for Big Cinnamon Toast, right?
Is that like Big Pharma and Big Tech?
Yes.
Big Cinnamon Toast.
Right. So privately, they're like talking to this guy and they're being apologetic to Jensen Karp, and the customer's always right, blah, blah, blah. But once he tweeted and that tweet went viral, they posted a public statement from the Cinnamon Toast Crunch handle that said, after further investigation with our team that closely examined the image, it appears to be an accumulation of the cinnamon sugar that sometimes can occur when ingredients aren't thoroughly blended. We assure you there's no possibility of cross-contamination with shrimp.
Wait. I have a lot of questions here. So basically, the molecular structure of whatever coats Cinnamon Toast Crunch, which I'm sure is neither cinnamon nor whatever, naturally takes the form of shrimp tails and it coagulates. Number one.
When it crystallizes, it's a crystal that has that molecular
Property.
formation.
Okay. Number two, I have a hypothesis, which is that perhaps Cinnamon Toast Crunch is being transported from China on a freight ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal,
and got
where it got
contaminated
contaminated with shrimp, with Egyptian shrimp.
But it would still be there is the problem. It would not
True. It
be in
wouldn't have
Los
been.
Angeles
Well, we're
yet.
about to get an onslaught of shrimpy cereal.
Shrimp. Yeah. So basically, Cinnamon Toast Crunch puts out this statement and they're like, after further investigation, blah, 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 like it's not shrimp. And Jensen Karp is then infuriated and he like posts the tweet responding saying, okay, well, after further investigation with my eyes, these are cinnamon coated shrimp tails. And I wasn't that mad until you tried to gaslight me. Right. So so then a friend of Jensen sees this all unfolding on Twitter and calls him and advises him to go back into the bag of cereal to see what other treasures await.
There's scallops, mussels, oysters,
swordfish.
It's like what do they call that in the restaurant with the tiers of seafood?
Oh, right. It's like
You know what I mean?
whatever.
Right?
Yeah.
The thing.
I don't know. A raw bar. So, okay.
Cinnamon bar.
So he goes back in the bag and he investigates. And, you know, they say, seek and ye shall find. And so he sees some more like shrimp shells. There's a small string. There's something that looks like a pistachio nut.
It's a potpourri. They're hidden delights. It's like when they would have the Cracker Jack with the hidden toy inside. This is just hidden shrimp and other matter. Some organic, some otherwise.
Yes. And so then he noticed at the bottom of the bag, there was like a small black piece embedded in some of the squares. And that's when he started to panic that the black pieces embedded in the Cinnamon Toast Crunch were rat droppings. And God. He freaks out and calls poison control, and they tell him that he should send they tell him he should send the cereal to a lab.
Because he has nothing better to do than to... This is like
Clearly.
Sidney Powell sending her like wild claims to the Supreme Court, right? This is now his job. This is his job now.
But he really does have nothing better to do, because what does he do? He gets in his car and he takes the cereal to Quest Diagnostics. And they're like, get the fuck out of here. You're not a cereal.
Like when you get your blood work done.
So that was a false start. Okay, and so meanwhile, General Mills is asking him to send him the cereal so that they can test it, but he doesn't trust them. So
No.
he agrees to send them one of the shrimp tails, and the other one he found a scientist who's gonna like test its DNA and find out the exact like species of shrimp that it is and where it came from. And so so that's good. There's a few things that are very interesting about this story when you step back. The first thing is the carp and fish thing. The second thing is people's reaction to this. Like some people were actually like excited about the shrimp in the Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and they started releasing viral
Like
recipes
it's a bonus.
of-
Like not only like you pay a lot of money for shrimp, like at a buffet.
Right. So they were like grinding up Cinnamon Toast Crunch and making shrimp tempura and posting videos on Twitter and YouTube and TikTok. And then there were all these people on the other side. It was very like divided, the reaction to this. Then there were like the people on the other side freaking out, not that there were shrimp tails in a box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, but that Cinnamon Toast Crunch is not kosher anymore. Okay, because Passover is coming up, and people are thinking a lot about that, but it's not even regular kosher.
No, well, Cinnamon Toast Crunch is not pesadilla anyway, because it's
right, but
wheat.
because it's wheat, but it's normally kosher.
Okay, good. Okay.
Right. Okay. And then there were people freaking out about the implications for people with allergies. Like there was one woman on Twitter who was like, I need to call my mother and go to her apartment and take away the Cinnamon Toast Crunch because she has a shellfish allergy, which is
That's
like,
a real thing. Yeah.
But like, do they really think that this is going to be in every box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch?
You never know. If it's in one, it could be in them all. One bad apple.
But I guess like to me, I was like, this is just a very weird story. I cannot get my head around what is so weird about it. But I think the thing about it.
Wait, you do not have to work hard to figure out what's so weird about it.
No, but
I just wet myself hearing about this story for the first time.
No, but there's the thing that was weirder to me is that there's anybody in Los Angeles in this day and age who even eats Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Like this is a cereal that was introduced in the early 80s. It is not gluten-free. It has tons of sugar. It's like all sugar. It's not organic. It's not even vegan. So, I mean, I guess like if you're going to eat Cinnamon Toast Crunch in this day and age, when we have all this knowledge about what's healthy, you need to like
Except there might be some shrimp
unexpected.
in it, and some string and some pistachios, some tree nuts.
Right. That's what I think happened here. General Mills is like, well, these people who are still eating this cereal are obviously garbage monsters.
Fucks
They have no standards. Let's throw in some shrimp tails.
We've got these shrimp tails sitting around. What are we going to do with them? Just throw them in the cinnamon.
Coat them with cinnamon and put them in. Let's see what happens, right? So, but there's an interesting coda to the story that just was unveiled today, and it's developing. Jensen Karp, in addition to being a serial heretic, he is also a serial abuser of ex-girlfriends and is now embroiled in his own Me Too scandal on Twitter.
This is a dark turn here.
It's a dark turn, yes. So it started today with a woman named Melissa Stetton who tweeted, "What you may not know about the man behind the viral post is that he's a manipulative, gaslighting, narcissistic ex-boyfriend who once told me he was surprised I hadn't killed myself because my life was so worthless." And then all these other exes came out of the woodwork to say that this man is psychologically abusive. He's basically the worst person they ever met. So it's a troubling story. And at least it has a horrifying ending.
It's nuanced. It's a nuanced story.
Yeah. So
I believe Topanga, whatever Topanga says.
Whatever Topanga says.
Because she's seen all sides of the story. She's seen him as a boyfriend. She's seen him as a shrimp victim. Like we could all be more than one thing.
Right. So I need to hear her side before weighing in.
No,
but
shut it down.
That
was one of the longest notes we've ever done, but it was 100% worth it because that was the most fun I've had in months. Okay. I'm not going to be able to live up to that, but I do have another food related item here. We've been talking about a lot, like during the pandemic, there's all these new ways of cooking. There's like, I'm into air frying now. There's the Instant Pot.
I got you into air frying, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I got one. I love it now. Yeah. So there is a new innovative way to cook chicken. specifically chicken. And this all started as crazy things do on Reddit with the following very, very innocent question. If I guess a little weird. If kinetic energy is converted into thermic energy, like law of thermodynamics or whatever that is, how hard do I have to slap a chicken to cook it?
Oh, interesting. Right.
Okay, so a physics major, I guess an undergraduate named Parker Ormond weighed in, and he wrote the following. The formula for converting between kinetic energy and thermal energy is 1/2 mv squared equals mct. The average
I
human...
knew that at one time. I'm sure you did too.
Yeah, the average human hand weighs about 0.4 kilograms. The average slap has a velocity of 11 m per second, 25 miles an hour. An average rotisserie chicken weighs 2 pounds and has a specific heat capacity of 2720 joules per kilogram times C, whatever that is. And let's assume the chicken has to reach 400 degrees Fahrenheit for us to consider it cooked. Now, the chicken doesn't have to be that, whatever. The chicken will start off frozen at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. To cook the chicken in one slap, you would have to slap it with the velocity of 3,725 miles an hour. which is problematic because the Earth only rotates at 1,600 miles per hour. So to your point, he then concludes by saying, if you do succeed, however, you will not only cook the chicken, but also decimate its entire structure, causing a violent explosion. Okay. And if you go on Twitter, there is a computer simulation of this that someone took the trouble to make of such an experiment. But so that might seem to have closed off that avenue of slapping a chicken to cook it. But well, where there's a will, there's a way. So maybe if you lightly spank the chicken, not all in one go, many times, you could get the same effect. And there's this like urban myth going around that you would have to slap a chicken 23,034 times to cook it. And that's oddly specific. It's obviously theoretical. Nobody has done it. But that created a challenge video on YouTube, which prompted dozens of idiots to sit there slapping chickens to try to cook it to no avail, which sounds like a sexual metaphor, but it's not. They're literally slapping the chicken, which led me to multiple long videos that I watched all of. And there's a particular guy named Louis Weiss, a young guy who makes like engineering videos where he tries to do weird things with engineering. It's a 15-minute video, and he built a device called the Meat Beater 9000. And basically it's this like hand going up and down that slaps a chicken, and it's connected to an engine. So he set it up and he moved it up from like 5 slaps per second to 15 slaps per second. And sure enough, the temperature started going up. It started at 62 degrees and he got it up to 90 degrees, the chicken, which is not
That's
nothing.
Still dangerous. Still
It's like eat it at that point. It's still raw chicken, but it's progress.
Progress. It's
right.
like, it's okay. Go on.
Okay. And then the machine like exploded because it couldn't take the pressure. Too much pressure.
Emotionally, like it just,
yes, it's like I can't deal with this.
I can't live up to your expectations, engineer.
Louis Weiss, right? Okay. And then he did another version of it that was much more sophisticated. It looked like the Large Hadron Collider. Like there was like a tube.
Yeah,
and a
I knew
hairdryer.
that's where we were going. I had a feeling someone was going to go
Given
there.
that you and I have a long history with the Large Hadron
Hadron Collider,
and
yes.
his Higgs bose, whatever.
Higgs boson, yeah.
Right. So he tried it again with this collider, and he got it to 123 degrees, which is still raw, but closer.
But how much energy is being expended in this process? Probably more than could cook like 1,000 chickens.
The point is, it's the
This
exact
is an
amount
environmental catastrophe.
It's having a negative impact on climate change. No, that's the whole point, is that the energy expended, the kinetic energy, becomes the thermal energy, which cooks the chicken. So it's the exact amount in and out.
No, but didn't they have to have a motor running the slapping machine?
Yeah, but that's all
didn't-
part of
that-
that's all that all
that's all
equals out
part of the
all-
equation. Okay.
I don't know. What do I look like? A fluid dynamic engineer? Like,
Okay.
I can't get the Suez Canal working. So this one got the temperature up to 123, and then it broke again. But once that happened, they showed the chicken, and it was a little bit cooked at this time. He actually showed like it was a little brown, but it was also like pulverized.
Of course. Like, what would you expect? This isn't like a good technique.
No, having been slapped like tens of thousands of times.
Like, what does like Eric Repair think about all this? That's what I want to know. Like,
I think he was
Jose
fine. I think he
Andres.
was financing the whole thing, because if they can crack this nut, like there's a whole new
It's a whole new preparation
technique
for
that he could
chefs. Okay.
do. So then he tried another iteration that he called the flap wheel, which you can imagine is a wheel that has like multiple paddles on it, and therefore it gives like lots
Oh,
of
it could be like a bicycle. You could ride your bike and cook a chicken at the same
Chicken At
time.
the same time, that's right. So it was a flap wheel, but the only thing flapping around was the chicken, because the chicken was like visibly pulverizing while it was getting flapped. And then the temperature of the chicken started dropping.
It was like an endothermic.
It was like cold fusion somehow, right? Maybe it was exposed. It was because it was pulverizing. It was more exposed to the air, and the air was cooling it or something.
Maybe,
but all I know is
yeah.
he showed where it looked like a dead rat in the road. So it was
This is
not
also
very-
a waste of food, you know? Like this is upsetting.
yeah, and also like a full chicken is a hard substance to cook. Like just start with a breast or some
Right.
like
A
boneless,
wing. Go with a
boneless-
wing.
boneless, skinless chicken thighs. Like those
Yeah.
are nice, and or a nice paillard, maybe.
They're going about this all wrong.
From a culinary point of view. Right. So finally, that video ended in defeat after I had wasted 20 minutes of my life watching that video. And then there was a sequel. And I didn't even know there was a sequel. It came up in the like side of the YouTube. So he came up with a breakthrough after consulting with all his engineering and physics friends. It turned out that you could cook it I didn't really get the physics here, but like to a lower temperature for a longer time. So if you just sustain the heat, it's kind of like a sous vide, I
Like
guess.
a sous vide,
Yeah, exactly. If you just, and he actually put it in a sous vide. It was like in a plastic casing. So he had worked out all the kinks. And sure enough, he cooked the chicken.
Okay, by hitting it in a
He
sous
cooked
vide
the
bag.
chicken in a sous vide bag for a really long time, and it took 135,000 slaps.
Over how many days? And by that time was the
Wait,
chicken rotten?
No, wait, I don't know. I'm losing track of the numbers here. It took a lot of slaps, but here's the punchline: is that the chicken was cooked, but it was also riddled with fiberglass. So because it kept getting hit by the flaps.
And the flaps were made of fiberglass?
Or yeah.
Okay.
So there was a transference of material in addition to like
Maybe that's what happened to the cinnamon toast crunch.
They were slapping it with shrimp. That's how they cooked the cinnamon toast crunch. So anyway, I guess the moral of the story is just put the chicken in the
cook a
fucking
chicken,
oven.
or just throw it in a water vent at Yellowstone Park like a normal person.
Yeah, absolutely. Wait. So you have more cooking news, right? Like
Yeah, so we had talked about the Yellowstone Park trio of men who like dipped a chicken in a hot spring to cook it. But now there was a big volcanic eruption in Iceland this week. And I was looking, I love to look at the slideshows of pictures of volcanoes and
pictures.
and there's AJ likes to see the lava as well. So there's a slideshow on Reuters. And Louisa, my college roommate, also sent me this photo there. And so there's great photos, like lava's flowing. It's very interesting. And all of a sudden there's this picture of hot dogs laying on a bed of molten lava with the caption, as if this is no big deal: a man prepares hot dogs at the volcanic site on the Reykjanes Peninsula following Friday's eruption in Iceland. Like, as if this is
That's
nothing.
yeah.
It's just what
when you have
people do.
When you have as many volcanoes as Iceland does, like it's like having a nice day in the backyard. You go barbecue, like
I mean, they do love hot dogs in
and
Iceland.
they do love volcanoes.
Yeah, so it's two great things that taste great together.
Yes. Boy, we have a lot of cooking, innovative cooking content today.
Yes. I do have one more cooking related thing to discuss. It's sort of like an aside, but the New York Times this week announced that they're stepping away from their cooking community Facebook group and they're handing it over to volunteer moderators. They had 80,000 members of this group, and the Times had to pay these people to moderate the content. And it's been riddled with controversies involving race and class and privilege. And there were fights about the election and whether MSG allergies were really just racism in disguise and what constitutes a real charcuterie board. It got really wild. Like, the debate was heated over that. Maybe the entrepreneur that you work with, Brian,
she may be trolling those boards for all I
know.
Or
maybe she could resolve this conflict. But the Times released a statement and it said, one thing is clear: the interest in this group is about much more than the recipes or the New York Times. As it continues to grow and change, it should be run by people who are engaged and an informed part of the community. And so it is time to hand this group over to you, its members, also known as goodbye. We are stepping away.
We're out.
Nothing to
we
do.
out. Drop mic. We out.
Yes, we out. Yeah. So so it got me thinking about what we talked about last week.
No, this reminds me of the sea slugs, right? So for those of you who don't remember, that my yup last week was to an article in the Times about a new discovery of sea slugs, that they decapitate themselves and the sea slug head, like a lot of animals, regenerates itself, and it takes just a month to do that. But the innovation here is that the body also stays alive for a few weeks. And it's sort of sentient, and the decapitated head kind of taunts the body, like goes around it and still like pokes at it.
Dances around.
Dances around. Like it's like a victory dance. And so I wonder if the New York Times was inspired to decapitate itself from the sea slug body of its cooking community on Facebook.
I think this is just such a good apt theory.
So I can imagine the meeting, like the newsroom meeting, like the all hands meeting, where they're like, ladies and gentlemen, we've decided to decapitate ourselves from the Facebook cooking. Right. Since we wrote about this, we are we're walking the walk. We are eating our own dog food, and we are being a sea slug. We are decapitating ourselves, and yet we will still
dance around and poke it once in a while
to make sure it's still alive. Okay.
Oh, yeah. No. So there's that. Yeah.
No fun that. Okay. We're running way over here. So let's move on to the ups. These are the little rays of light, the little beacons of hope that got us through the week. Rachel, I would love you to start.
Yeah. So have you heard of Frayed on HBO? Frayed?
No. There's so many shows now, I can't keep up.
It's like so up your alley. So it's a British comedy, and it's got a lot in common with Schitt's Creek, but it's more like cringy. It's about
you had me at Schitt's Creek and cringy. My God,
it's
staff. Let's have.
I was
flats,
cackling like a maniac. So this wealthy British uptight woman finds herself suddenly penniless and living with her trashy family in the middle of nowhere, Australia. So it's just got the like Australia British thing going. It is so hilarious. It's on HBO. Everyone should watch it. Frayed, Frayed. It's hysterical.
Well, if I wasn't going to be up all night editing this podcast, I would watch it tonight. Good. Thank you for that. My yup goes to former Senator Bill Nelson, who has just been appointed by Joe Biden to lead NASA.
Yeah,
and
it's
finally,
amazing.
we have a cabinet level appointee who knows something about the subject that they are actually in charge of. Like I said, he's a former U.S. Senator for many years from Florida. His district, he was a representative. He represents like the Cape Canaveral, Cape Kennedy district, and he's been the biggest supporter of NASA. He and most of all, he flew on the fucking space shuttle himself. Right.
Oh, so he's
right. So
he knows
a thing or two. He ate his own dog food. That's right.
Yeah.
Now he flew on the space shuttle Columbia on the last flight before the Challenger explosion. So he's an OG, but then the Columbia exploded too. So whatever. but he's totally qualified to do this job, which is a refreshing change for everything in the world.
But what about Space Force? Is that going to be part of NASA, or are they going to kill it?
TBD. I'm not sure. Like, I think it should be part of the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard is underappreciated. Like, the space is like the ultimate coast in a sense.
It's the coast in the sky.
Okay, that about wraps up our nopes and our yups this week. Thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please rate, review, subscribe. Oh, for the ratings, please. Like, we hope we get that terrible like troll rating taken down. But until we do, just flood the reviews with 5
zone 5 stars. If you've been like, oh, I like this podcast, but I'm too lazy to write a rating, this is your moment. Go in there, go into your app, and just give us a 5-star rating to undo. You don't have to. I mean, we love
comments, but if like you're not feeling creative to write a comment, like just
give us just 5 stars. That's it. You don't have to say anything. It takes
all
2
numbers.
seconds.
It's all just
we will
numbers.
appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. So thank you. It's been a terrible, terrible week. We hope to dig ourselves out of the Suez Canal by next week. But it has been a fun podcast to record. Thank you for listening. This has been Nope,
the podcast where we shut it down.